Hello, friends. I've got a special treat for you today. I'm gifting you a family heirloom. It's my grandma's famous chocolate candy cookies. And you're going to love them. Everyone else does. So grab a paper, a pen, a drink, sit back, take some notes maybe, and let's get to cooking. Hey there. Welcome to my recipe journal. My name is Jackie. I'm not a chef, food critic. I've never been to culinary school, but what I do have is over 30 years experience serving my friends and family tasty meals and treats. Lately, I've decided to expand on my knowledge, try some new recipes, new flavors, new techniques, and I'd like to pay it forward and share what I know, both old and new. I've decided to document my journey by journaling my experience. Okay, friends, let's head to the kitchen.
Hello, friends, and welcome. So we're going to get started making the no-bake chocolate candy cookies. And we're going to start off with 2 cups of sugar here. And before you start gathering your ingredients together, go ahead and ahead of time take some parchment paper and lay some parchment paper out, because after you get this to the temperature it needs to go to and you put it in the oats, you have to work really, really quickly, and you don't have time to really be getting your parchment paper out at that point in time. You really need to do it ahead of time, just because you have to work really fast. Okay, so that being said, get your 2 cups of sugar, and then you're going to take like 1/3 cup of cocoa. And I didn't level that off or anything. I just put that in there. And like a pinch of table salt, just regular table salt. Just get you a pinch, put it in there. And then you're going to take 1/2 cup of milk. Pour that in there. And then you're going to put your heat on medium. And then you're going to stir this up. And what you're looking for is for your cocoa and sugar and salt and all to get good and dissolved. And so my grandmother called these chocolate candy cookies. And I think the reason, I don't know if it was a generational thing or a regional thing. My grandmother lived in like the Midwest states. Well, I'll just go ahead and say she lived in Michigan. That's where I was born. And I live in the South now, and I have since I was 8 years old. So in the South, they call these cookies chocolate oatmeal cookies. That's what my husband and his family calls it. It's chocolate oatmeal cookies. But we always called it chocolate candy cookies. That's what I grew up hearing them called. And it makes sense, chocolate candy cookies, because like when you make fudge and things like that, you're actually waiting for a certain consistency, like boil time, to get it to a certain, I want to say is it called soft ball stage, something like that? I don't know. It sounds funny. It's like I'm talking like sports, but you let it boil for a certain length of time to make it harden into fudge. So with these cookies, you also let it boil for a certain length of time to get to a certain consistency so that it will harden up and become a cookie. So that makes sense for the name chocolate candy cookie. So for the southern part, I can understand the chocolate oatmeal because it's mainly chocolate, you see, and oats. And by the way, speaking of oats, you're going to want 2.5 cups of oats set aside, okay? And that should be quick oats or minute oats or whatever you want to call it. You can also use regular oats, but if you do that, if that's all you have, that's fine. But it'll give you a chewier consistency. And I don't know, it might make it thicker as well. I've used them one time before, and it seemed like it was just chewier, but it had a good taste and all. It was just a little chewier and kind of thicker, I think. But anyways, so talking about the names of this cookie has. So my friend in Virginia, though, she said that she always grew up with her family calling it preacher cookies. And the reason why, she said, was because these cookies make up so quickly that way back in the day when her mom was a little girl and her grandmother was, the one making the cookies. Basically, the story is that when the preacher used to come and visit people, it was more of a personal thing, go house to house. You see him coming down the road, the preacher, and I don't know if that was meaning on foot or by car or what, and he was visiting different people. If you see him in a distance coming, then these cookies were quick enough that you could make it up, and by the time you got to your house, you'd have something to serve the preacher. So they're called preacher cookies because of how quickly they come together. And right now, it looks like the sugar is dissolved and everything has come together really well. That's good. What we're waiting for now is just a little bit of, we're waiting for it to start the boil process. When it does start the boiling process, you're going to look, this is the important part about making these cookies. You're going to want to make sure that you see it boiling in the center. I used to just take it when it started boiling, set my timer, because when it starts boiling, you're going to have to set your timer for like 2 minutes. And I used to do that just immediately when I seen the first little boil, but you don't do that. You have to wait until you see a little bit in the center, just a couple of times at least, and then set your timer for 2 minutes. And that part of it is really extremely important, because if you don't let it cook for long enough, it's going to be soft and not set up like a cookie form. Too long and it's hard and crumbly. So, but I was going to tell you a little story about my grandmother, since this is her recipe, just to tell you the type of person she is, handing down her recipe. It only feels right. So my grandmother and I used to talk a lot on the phone. That's most of my memories. I have a lot of memories of her, but mostly we used to talk a lot on the phone because we live so far apart. And one time she called me and she told me, she said, "Jackie, I got a call the other day." And it was she got a collect call from prison. And she didn't know the person. She didn't recognize the name, but she accepted the charges. And she sat there and talked to this gentleman on the phone for as long as he was allowed to talk. And I was kind of concerned about that just a little bit. I was like, "Grandma, he might be taking advantage of you. I don't know if I would do that." But she expressed to me, "Jackie, this man has no family. He has nobody to talk to. And I think it's important that somebody out there spends some time with him and shows him a little bit of love and lets him know, that he is special and he's important too." And, kind of made me just pause and think for a minute. My grandmother was like, to me, in my eyes, the very definition of kindness and love. She was a lady of faith, strong Christian values. And I don't know whatever happened to that gentleman, but I know that my grandmother made a very positive impact on his life, because that's not the end of the story. The man continued to call her, month after month. And my grandmother would accept the charges and talk to this man just as long as he was allowed to talk. Many people would kind of complain and go on and on about, some random person calling out of nowhere, and having to pay the man's bill for talking to him. But she never did. She never complained. She just talked about, being there for somebody who had nobody. And I just, it's hard to come across people like that anymore. She is very, very special in my eyes. And for anybody who ever come in contact with her, very special. to them as well. She was just the perfect example to me of love and kindness. And, I'm just honored to be able to say that she is my grandmother. She's passed away now, but whenever I make her recipes like this, it makes me feel closer to her. It makes me feel like maybe she can see me, maybe she knows, and I don't know. No one knows. So I just continue to believe that way. It makes me feel better. And I just thought it was important that you knew a little bit about the person that I'm handing this recipe down from. I just think that's important. There's a lot of recipes that are similar to my grandmother's, but most of the time when I try a recipe or a cookie, not a recipe, because I've never made any other recipe than hers. But when I try a cookie that's not hers, a lot of times it's missing something. I'm not sure what. Truly, I'm not sure what it is. So, and it may just be that I'm biased. It just seems like there is no other cookie I've tasted that compares to hers. And like I said, I could be biased, but everyone that has ever tried my grandmother's cookie has loved it. And for some people, they might think it's, maybe a little bit too sweet and whatever. And I don't know. I guess it depends on what you're used to, but you could always, I'm sure, take a little bit of there's been times when I've used just a cup and a half of sugar, but just remember, if you experiment like that just a little bit, everything that you do to the recipe, you have to kind of practice it, because that will impact how thick the mixture comes out in the end. And if you have a creamier consistency or a thicker consistency, it's more dry. And it's not to say that it'll taste bad, it won't, but everything that you do like that will impact how it turns out in the end. So I can tell we're getting close to that boiling stage. And that's another thing too, is try to stir it enough to where the chocolate's not burning. But you don't want to over stir too, because every time you do stir it up, it's cooling down just a little bit. So you're wanting it to build a little bit of a temperature, because it has to get to a certain temperature degrees to be able to harden up into that cookie phase, that hardened, almost like fudgy state. So we're just looking for the boiling to start, and I can tell we're really, really close. And you're going to want to see it mainly in the center. If it starts boiling off to the sides, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for some boiling to start right here in the center. I really don't understand the difference in it. Maybe somebody else knows the science. When I was first starting to try to make cookies and stuff like this, I thought when it started to boil, then set your timer. But no, that's not the case, because if you just see a few things on the side, it's really not hot enough, I guess, all over. So you want to make sure it's at least hot enough for starting to boil in the center, to start setting your timer. You will set your timer for 2 minutes exactly, and you will not want to stir the mixture at all. You're going to let it just cook and build in temperature for 2 minutes. And that's important too. I'm going to wait and see if it's starting to, yeah, that's what I thought. It was getting close. So I'm starting to see just a little bit in the center of the boiling. I don't know if that camera's picking it up good or not, but it's starting to boil just a little bit in the center. Whew, I touched that pot and it's hot. Okay, I'm going to start my timer. And while that's going, that same measuring cup that we done the 1/3 of cocoa, you're going to want 1/3 of peanut butter. So I'm just going to rinse this out, fill it up with peanut butter, and use that. I try my best to keep the kitchen just a little bit from looking like a tornado hit. try to kind of clean as I go. Let's see. I'm really interested to know if anyone else out there knows these cookies by a different name. Like instead of chocolate candy cookies or chocolate oatmeal cookies or the preacher cookies, did you call them a different name growing up or still today or whatever? I mean, did you call them something different? I think it's interesting how many different names this cookie seems to have. And I mean, just by coincidence, chance, I found it out. I always thought that it was the same name, just like chocolate chip cookies or chocolate chip cookies. But it's funny how different generations or different regions of, let's say, United States or something, things are different. It's kind of neat. We got 14 seconds, and I got my peanut butter in the measuring cup. And I hope I won't end up jerking this camera around too much, guys. So forgive me if I do, but I'm going to take this off the heat and slide this over. Turn your heat off. Don't be like me and forget things. Oh, Lord. Sometimes I feel like if my head wasn't attached, I'd leave it somewhere or something. Does anybody else feel that way? I'm not the only one. Okay, so I'm going to put the butter in there. You're going to want a stick of butter to go in there. And you're going to put your peanut butter in there as well. And you're just sort of kind of going to be melting it into the mixture. Not sort of kind of, but you are. That's what's going to happen. You're melting it into this mixture using the heat from. How hot we got it. I hope that me stirring isn't making a terrible, terrible noise. I apologize if it's a terrible sound. But anyways, my husband brought some cookies like this to his workplace simply because every now and then when I would make them, he would take them to work and he would brag about them, and he actually let some people taste it. They begged him to have me to make them some, so I did. And all right, that's getting to where it looks like it's melted. That's what you're looking for, is to make sure these butter and the peanut butter is melted. And once it's melted, I'm going to add in a little bit of vanilla. It should be about a teaspoon, but you know what? I just pour a little bit in like that. Just that's probably 2 teaspoons or more. But you know what? It's not going to hurt nothing. It's just going to make it taste yummier. All right, and now I'm going to pour it into the oat mixture. But what I was saying is, the gentleman who got the cookies was very grateful, and he let his son, obviously, I don't know if the gentleman's married or whatever, but I know his son tried the cookies and loved them. And after the cookies were gone, the little boy wanted more cookies, and so I guess he just felt like he should just buy the cookies instead of asking or whatever. But when he bought some from the grocery store, the little boy's like, "This does not taste the same. This is not the same cookies." And I have to agree with them. I mean, that's the reason why I think my grandma's recipe is the absolute best. I am a little biased, but okay. So this part I can't show you real quick, but all you're going to do is take a spoonful of the mixture and put it down on your parchment paper. I usually put 2 spoonfuls down. I just don't want to jerk that camera around and then cause somebody to have a seizure. Okay, so here is a glimpse of the cookies after I've taken them out of the bowl, and as you see, I'm in a mess everywhere, but they are in the process of hardening to cookie candy state. So it takes usually about 30 minutes or so to get these exactly quite right. So you gotta have a little patience, and you know, you could always like test to see if they're ready. Take your little snack. It's good. See, you can have just a little tiny bit of a snack for yourself. See that? Good stuff, guys. Well, that's about it for this week. I'm honored that you spent your valuable time with me today. I hope you'll join me again for another recipe soon. Just so you won't miss a recipe, hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Lots of love and blessings to all you friends. Bye for now. Take care.